Is Sei's dream truly noble, or is it terrifying? Because on paper, his dream sounds as pure as can be. He wants to unify all of China, not for power, not for glory, but because he believes unification is the only way to stop the endless cycle of war. And that is what makes Sei so inspiring. But it is also what makes him so morally interesting. Because the future Sei wants cannot be reached through one of his legendary speeches alone. It requires conquest. It requires sacrifice. It requires Qin to invade, defeat, and eventually destroy entire kingdoms. So the question is not simply whether Sei is good or evil. It is much more complicated than that. Sei's dream is one of Kingdom's most compelling moral questions because it is both noble and terrifying. His ideal might be inspiring, but the cost of that ideal is horrifying. The first reason Sei's dream is morally complicated is because of his genuine idealism. And by idealism, I mean the belief that the world can be changed with a greater vision, even when reality says that vision is impossible. Sei truly believes that if China remains divided, war will continue forever. And that is why it is so important to look closely at his debates with Ryufui, Roboku, and Oken. Because in these moments specifically, Kingdom is not just asking whether Sei has the power to unify China. It is asking whether his dream actually makes sense, and whether it is truly worth it. During the State of Ai arc, Ryufui challenges Sei with a completely different worldview. He believes that humans are driven by desire and self-interest. To him, the world cannot be moved by some grand ideal. It is only moved by wealth. But Sei believes in something greater. He believes that humans can be led toward a future beyond endless war, even though war is currently treated as an unavoidable part of human nature. That is what makes him so noble, but it is also what makes him so dangerous. Because once a king believes his dream is the only way to save the world, even conquest can begin to look like justice. And that danger becomes even clearer during his debates with Roboku and Oken. In the Bureaucrat's Job arc, Roboku challenges the morality of unification. From Zhao and every other state's perspective, Qin's dream of peace is still invasion. Qin armies are still marching into other states. People are still losing their homes, their loved ones, and their livelihoods. Even when Roboku suggests a 7-state alliance, Sei instantly rejects that idea because he believes it would never bring about lasting peace. It might create peace for the world that Sei and Roboku live in, but not for the generations long after they are gone. Now Oken, the king of Qi, is important for a different reason. He tests whether Sei's dream is empty idealism or whether it actually has true conviction and logic behind it, enough for a king of another state to seriously listen. These debates are so important because they prove Sei's dream is not shallow. He has thought deeply about the world after unification. He understands the scale of what he is trying to do, and he has the conviction to defend that dream against anyone, whether they're a merchant, great general, or another king. At the same time, these debates prove why Sei's idealism is terrifying. He is by no means chasing a small dream. He is chasing an undertaking never seen before, one so massive that every other kingdom has no choice but to be dragged into it, whether they believe in that dream or not. So yes, Sei's ideal is inspiring, but Kingdom makes it very clear that idealism can become quite dangerous when the only path to peace is conquest. And if Sei's idealism is dangerous, it is because the price of that ideal is never symbolic. It is paid for with real people. This is the second reason Sei's dream is morally complicated. Kingdom constantly reminds us that unification is more than a political idea. It is a system that rapidly consumes lives. And the scary part is that it does not only consume Qin's enemies, it consumes Qin itself. The Three Pillars arc is one of the clearest examples of this. In order to revive Qin's quest for unification, Sei and Shoheikun essentially turned the entire state into a war machine. Every adult man in Qin is pulled into the plan. Families and villages are swallowed up by Qin's need to raise a massive army in an insanely short amount of time. And this matters because it shows that Sei's dream does not begin with the enemy. It begins by sacrificing his own people. Before Qin can destroy another kingdom, Qin itself has to suffer. The people of Qin have to give up their fathers, their sons, and ordinary people that aren't even workers for a future they probably will not live long enough to see. This is where the morality of sacrifice becomes becomes uncomfortable. Sei's not asking people to simply believe in this peace, he is asking them to die for it. And that problem becomes even darker after the Battle of Aikyu, when Kanki beheads tens of thousands of Jiao prisoners. That moment is especially important because Kanki becomes the nightmare reality of Sei's dream. Sei can paint his goal as peace. He can say that unification is meant to end war, but the fact is, the path to that peace still creates opportunities for people like Kanki to commit horrible atrocities under Chin's banner. A war for peace, and yet monsters are still born from it. Massacres are still born from it. Horrors that cannot be simply washed away by saying it'll all be worth it in the end are still born from it. And then the conquest of Han takes this moral problem to an even larger scale, because with Han, sacrifice is no longer only about soldiers dying on the battlefield. It is about the death of an entire kingdom's future. The people of Nanyo having to conform to Qin law and Shinte, facing the fall of Han itself, shows the true scale of Sei's dream. For Qin, Han's fall is progress. For Han, their fall is the end of their history, their culture, and their nation. That is the moral weight of unification. Kingdom is asking whether future peace justifies present suffering. Does the safety of future generations really justify the current generation's pain? Does a world without war justify destroying the previous one to create it? That is why Sei's dream is complicated but also powerful, because he might be right, but if he is right, it demands a disgusting amount of blood. Now, this is where Sei's dream becomes even more terrifying, because Kingdom forces us to ponder an even tougher question. At what point does ambition, no matter how noble, become tyranny? From Qin's perspective, unification is salvation for all of China, the only way to stop the endless cycle of war. But as we already know, Qin's dream looks like domination in the eyes of the other states, and Kingdom is so good at forcing us to see Qin through those same eyes. One of the clearest and earliest examples is Mangoku during the coalition invasion. From Qin's side, Mangoku is its worst nightmare. He is cruel to everyone in Qin, soldier or not, and obsessed with revenge. But Kingdom makes it clear that Mangoku wasn't born this way. His hatred was born from Qin's past atrocities, particularly Chohei. This matters because Mangoku is proof that Qin's dream can never be separated from Qin's history. When Qin says, "We are going to create lasting peace," that sounds very different to people like Mangoku. All they hear is the same state that once violated them, now claiming to be salvation. And then you have Kokyo and Rigan. Through Rigan, Kingdom forces us to recognize Qin not as the heroic protagonists, but as invaders trampling someone else's home. And this is important because Kyokai is one of the more morally pure characters in the series. She is far from Kanki. She is far from cruel. She is not one to enjoy suffering. But even Kyokai cannot escape the reality of what Qin is doing. From Rigan's perspective, she is still part of those bastard invaders. And this idea becomes even clearer with Shin's duel against Gaku Hakuko at Aikyu. Shin is the hero among heroes. He cares deeply about people. He deeply rejects Kanki's cruelty. He never wants to become that kind of monster. But even Shin has to accept that he is an invader. No matter how noble he is, he still plays a large part in destroying other states. That is the struggle between ambition and tyranny. To Qin, Shin is fighting for a better future. To Jiao, Shin is just another invader destroying their home. And that is why Sei's dream cannot be judged only from Qin's perspective, because every kingdom Qin conquers has its own history, its own culture, and its own reason to resist. So the undeniable truth is that Sei's dream can be noble and terrifying at the same time. It can be a vision of peace and still look like domination to everyone else being conquered. So is Sei's dream truly worth the bloodshed? Kingdom does not give us an easy answer, and that is exactly why his dream is one of the most compelling moral questions in the entire story. Sei's idealism is genuine. He truly believes that unification is the only way to stop the endless cycle of war. But Kingdom also makes it impossible to ignore the cost of that dream. Qin's own people suffer for it. Enemy soldiers are slaughtered because of it. Entire kingdoms are forced to surrender their culture to it. And even someone as heroic as Shin has to accept that he's still an invader. That is what makes Sei so morally interesting. His dream is not purely heroic, but it is not purely evil either. It is a dream built on the the belief that unimaginable suffering today can create lasting peace tomorrow. And whether that dream looks like salvation or tyranny depends entirely on which side you're standing on when Shin arrives. Because Sei may be trying to end war forever, but to do that, he has to become the king who wages a war unlike anything China has ever seen.